Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Patton, and I'm the Community Relations and Crime Prevention Officer for the City of Kingsport Police Department. And I want to welcome you to our community forum to discuss the alarming problem of synthetic drugs. Just want to briefly go over the agenda. During our first hour, we're going to start by having a few words from Gail Osborne, our Chief of Police. We're then going to transition into a presentation on synthetic drugs. And then we're going to have some comments from some of our guest speakers. Then during our second hour, we're going to have an open question-answer discussion session with our panel of experts up here, and each person will be able to come up to the microphone and ask their question or make their comments to the panel. So without further ado, we'll start off with Chief Osborne.
I just wanted to thank everybody for coming tonight. We have such a wide area of interest on this topic tonight. We brought some people together to talk about this and look at some options that we may have on a short term and options that we may have on a long term. And I'm sure there's questions that you'd like to ask us when we get done. This is a topic, the K2 and the bath salts, that we hadn't even heard of a year ago. And it's not only statewide, it's nationwide. So we're going to share some information with you, and then we're going to give you an opportunity to ask us some questions and try to come together as a community. And we've drawn a line in the sand, and we're going to address this problem, short term and long term. So with that, thanks again for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Osborne. So why are we here this evening? Synthetic drugs are a serious health and safety problem that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed immediately. These drugs are readily available to anyone, regardless of their age, at a number of locations right here in this city where we live. I'm going to start off with a short video showing an individual under the influence of bath salts.
Bay County 911. What's going on?
Hello, please leave a message after the tone.
What's your name? What's up? Can you tell me what your name is? Really? Wow. Sweet. Do we know what our name is? Hmm?
I hope you noticed the change from the euphoria to the paranoia and then back to the euphoria. There's a definite transition in his in his demeanor. The two most prevalent synthetic drugs in our society are synthetic cannabinoids, which are also known as the synthetic marijuana, or you may have heard it referred to as K2, and the synthetic cathinones, which are commonly referred to as bath salts. We're going to go over these each one at a time just to kind of let you know the effects of these drugs and how they affect the body. Start off with bath salts. These powders are marketed as bath salts but are not salts for bath water, not even close. One of the ways you can tell this is by their cost. If you go into a pharmacy and get a large container of Epsom's bath salts for just a few dollars, whereas you get a thimble full of these bath salts that are used as a drug for $30 or $40 or $50. So that's one of our clues. They contain 4-MMC or MDPV. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce those tonight. Powerful mood-altering stimulants formulated for effects similar to cocaine or methamphetamine. And they're consumed by smoking, snorting, or injecting. And users claim a more social and interactive feeling which can lead to hallucinations and profound paranoia. Show you another video.
You could die from this.
It's called bath salt. Drug counselors and cops say it's the latest rage in the world of synthetic drugs, a world your kids may know too well.
It's being sold in what's called head shops, or in some states it's even being sold in convenience stores.
It comes in small packages costing anywhere from $30 to $50.
It's not really bath salt.
Experts say, in fact, it's a combination of two synthetic drugs that when snorted or smoked has the same effects as cocaine. But in many cases, the reaction is far more dangerous.
Cardiac distress, hallucinations, severe paranoia, and complete disorientation.
It induces a craving so strong that people continue to do more and more and more of it to the point where they end up having either suicidal thoughts and in some cases kill themselves.
Police say late last year in Louisiana, a 21-year-old son of a doctor killed himself after ingesting bath salts. In Florida, cops say this woman was high on bath salt when she attacked her mother with a machete. Federal agents tell the NBC 10 investigators the drug manufactured in Europe first hit Louisiana, Florida, North Dakota, Kentucky, Hawaii, and Michigan just a few months ago. And within the past few weeks, it's made its way to our area.
We've seized it here in the Philadelphia area.
The Philadelphia Poison Control Center says over the past few weeks, they've seen 12 cases of bath salt overdoses. And the Pinnacle Health Toxicology Center in Harrisburg says they've seen a case per day over the past month. Just to show how easy it is for anyone to get the drug, the parents of this 16-year-old agreed to let her order a batch online. On the website, the brands have catchy names like Ivory Wave, Purple Wave, Bliss, and Ocean Burst. Just days later, the drugs arrived from England to our NBC 10 studios. And what's even more alarming, cops say they cannot stop the sale of the drugs because they are not illegal.
We can't legally charge someone with either possession or distribution.
So, how would you know if your kid is using bath salt?
When they're using it, they're not eating at all, sometimes for up to a week at a time. So you're going to be seeing a kid who's having dramatic weight loss, who's not sleeping, and who is extremely and disproportionately irritable.
Experts say the symptoms will only get worse because users just can't stop.
It's very addictive because of the way it impacts the brain.
Okay, as far as bath salts exposure, the American Association of Poison Control Centers reported 303 exposures to bath salts in 2010, and that would seem like a relatively alarming number until we look at 2011 numbers. In just the first 8 months, 4,720 exposures have been reported, and that goes along with what Chief Osborne mentioned earlier about how a year ago we hadn't even heard of it yet. Potpourri and incense. These forms of synthetic cannabinoids, marketed as types of home air fresheners or herbal incense, are not regulated by the FDA at all. Risks of severe psychotic complications may be more likely to occur because the type and amount of cannabinoid can vary considerably from batch to batch, even within the same product. Addiction is a strong possibility. Innovation in manufacturing of these products quickly outdates the current banned product lists. On to synthetic marijuana, also known as K2, K3, or spice, is a chemical compound that is 3 to 5 times more potent than THC, which is the chemical ingredient in marijuana. It is typically sold in small, silvery plastic bags of dried leaves and marketed as incense that can be smoked. The active chemical compound decreases body temperature, leaves the body unable to feel certain stimuli, and increases the heart rate and blood pressure. These products are usually smoked in joints or pipes, but some users will make it into a tea. We actually have a sample on display that is in the form of a tea back here in the back. A video on K2.
It's called K2. This is a synthetic drug 10 times more potent than THC. That is the ingredient in marijuana that gives people their high. And we actually sent our production assistant to buy this legal drug, and she was able to do it without an ID.
We're here outside a shop that sells K2. You're supposed to be over 18 to buy it, but I'm going to go in there without my ID and see if they'll sell it to me. I bought it. They didn't ask for an ID, no questions. Here it is, $90 of K2.
So this is going to give you hallucinations. Some people have bad reactions, vomiting, agitation. The other dangers are we don't even know what chemicals are sprayed on this. People are smoking it. It's completely unregulated, and it's more potent than marijuana. This stuff scares me. And what really scares me, Christina, if I could go to you, is do kids use sometimes these quote-unquote legal drugs and then end up having them as a gateway to other types of drugs?
They do. And, as somebody that's specialized in addiction for the last 15 years, I don't necessarily believe in gateway drugs. It's, a drug is a drug is a drug in the brain system. Okay. And any exposure on a developing brain to substances has profound effects on the developing personality and emotional aspects of the individual. And that's the other thing that concerns me also is that we live in such an outward-focused society, and we have a generation of young people that are always reaching for the outside to fix something on the inside, having trouble self-regulating their own emotions.
Okay, the next synthetic drug I want to cover is plant food. And again, this is not the same plant food that you're going to buy at the garden nursery. Mephedrone is labeled and sold as plant food. The powder mimics the effects of ecstasy. It is distributed in capsule form, and users break apart the capsule and snort or smoke the exposed powder. Insomnia, hypertension, vasoconstriction, and sweating, as well as psychotic-like symptoms, cardiac dysrhythmias, seizures, and renal problems have been reported. This next one is called Lazy Cakes, and in addition to chemically created synthetic drugs, several products use natural ingredients to mimic the effects of certain drugs. Melatonin-laced brownies are comparable to Valium or tranquilizers, and they typically contain 7.8 milligrams of melatonin, whereas typically 0.2 milligrams to 0.5 milligrams will induce sleep in the average adult. These products can cause impairment to the central nervous system, trouble breathing, and nausea. As far as the local presence of synthetic drugs, it is right here in Kingsport. We're not trying to hide that. We're trying to educate you of that. I just want you to see this graph showing that the synthetic drug-related calls that we've answered in Kingsport. We go back to November of 2010 at the far left, where we had 5, and they seem to trickle off there for just a minute, but then in March they started back up of 2011, and they have a trend upward from that point forward. And if you'll see, 24 of these calls were just in the month of November. So we're actually getting about 25% of all the calls that we've had over the past year just in the last month alone. I'm going to show you some photographs of synthetic drugs that were purchased recently in Kingsport. These are the same drugs that are on the display at the back if you have a chance to look at that on the way in or on the way out. These were all purchased last week right here in Kingsport. You'll see the DEA compliant label on that one in the corner. That one's labeled as potpourri and lab certified. This is the one that's sold as a tea. It's designed to be consumed by drinking it rather than smoking it or snorting it or injecting it. So if we have this problem, what's being done to combat the problem? Let's start at the federal level. In March of 2011, the DEA listed 5 synthetic cannabinoids as Schedule I controlled substances under the Federal Controlled Substances Act. And this was done as an emergency order, which would last a year while they can kind of back up and figure out how better to handle this. And then in October 2011, the Drug Enforcement Administration listed 3 synthetic cathinones as Schedule I controlled substances under the Federal Controlled Substance Act. And again, these are just emergency orders designed to last a year until better laws can go into effect. But these lists are constantly being updated. When they learn of new designer drugs, new synthetic drugs that are coming on the market, they're actually adding them to these lists, and law enforcement are getting updated lists of these. At the state level, the state of Tennessee enacted Tennessee Code Annotated Sections 3917-438, which pertains to synthetic marijuana, and 3917-452, which pertains to bath salts, in an attempt to regulate and control synthetic marijuana and bath salts by listing some of the specific chemical elements and compounds used to produce these synthetic drugs. So the big question is, if we have federal and state laws already on the books dealing with synthetic drugs, why are they still being legally sold and purchased throughout our community? And the answer, there's several reasons. The products are labeled not for human consumption, which even though their real purpose is for human consumption, and this causes a great deal of difficulty from enforcement because we don't know what's in the product. By doing so, they bypass many FDA regulations, and again, the most significant of which is that they do not have to list those ingredients on the product label. So when we go into a store in law enforcement and see the item, we don't even know what's in the product. Again, and that goes back to because they label it not for human consumption. The second reason is that because they're trying to stay ahead of the laws, and because Tennessee laws are so specific by listing specific chemical compounds, they're changing the formulations of these synthetic drugs to avoid the application of these laws. But the effect of the newly formulated drugs is the same or similar to the original formulation. And apparently there's thousands of chemical formulations available to create these drugs, making enforcement using the current laws difficult, if not impossible. So if these current federal and state laws are not working, what's being done now? Well, local officials are lobbying state legislators in an attempt to give law enforcement the power to combat this problem. And the hope is that Tennessee will enact a law similar to the law in our neighboring state of Virginia concerning synthetic drugs. And Virginia's state law on synthetic drugs are much more general and thus much more enforceable than Tennessee laws. By not focusing on the specific chemical makeup of these drugs and instead focusing on the general effects of these drugs on the human body, Virginia has declared that any synthetic drug that mimics the effects of a drug that's already illegal, so that synthetic drug will be illegal as well. And in the meantime, the City of Kingsport Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and I see some of them here this evening, I'm glad to have you all here, they've approved on first reading and will approve on second reading tomorrow evening, December 6th, a city ordinance that deals with synthetic drugs. And this ordinance is designed to protect the health and well-being of the public by regulating synthetic marijuana and bath salts that are created in such a way as to avoid regulation by federal and state law. We're going to transition into our guest speakers now, and we're going to start off with District Attorney General Barry Staubus, who serves our citizens as the District Attorney of Sullivan County.
Thank you. I'd like to begin by reading a letter that was written in the Kingsport Times-News just a couple of weeks ago. And the writer states, "My family is living in this nightmare of K2 and bath salts. My oldest granddaughter is in rehab right now from these drugs. She's no longer the beautiful child we love. She's skin and bones. She's only 22. It's going to take weeks and months for her to get her life back. This letter is to the mayor of Kingsport and all those who are helping to stop this madness. Please get these people who are selling this stuff to realize it's killing these kids. They're doing it because they can pass a drug test and they can get by with their parents. Every day it's getting worse. We need to stand up and do all we can to clean out the evil." I think that reflects my view, and I believe it reflects many members of the community that are here tonight, and the members of the community that aren't here tonight. And as I was sworn in back in August with Governor Haslam, one of the things I stated that I believed was a challenge to Sullivan County, and one of the tasks that I felt was important to undertake as a district attorney, was to combat this new epidemic called K2, and more particularly bath salts. I knew that we were on the cusp of a new battle against drugs that would danger our community and danger our children. And you just saw a graph that states those very statistics, that bears that out, that we're on the front end of a battle. And I have been in communication and conversations with community leaders and other individuals in the last 2-3 weeks. And I know the mayor and members of the city council are doing their best to combat it with an ordinance. And as you just heard a few minutes ago, the state law that we have in effect is inadequate. It was written and enacted before this problem began to explode. What I intend to do and what I am seeking to do is to meet, and I have met with Representative Shipley, Representative Lundberg, and Lieutenant Governor Ramsey. I've explained that the inadequacies of the current law that we have, that it criminalizes the chemical makeup of bath salts, but the people who produce it can change it ever so slightly and it's no longer illegal. So my opinion is that the statute needs to be changed to criminalize the conduct and the effects of the drugs, to make it broader, and also to make the penalty more severe. Instead of an A misdemeanor, make it a felony. And I believe if we're successful in doing that, it will go a long way on the prosecution end of giving us the law that will give us the tool to combat this. Then when we have a statute, a law that has some real teeth in it, that gives us real power, then we can work with Sheriff Osborne, we can work with Sheriff Anderson and Chief Wade in Bristol, then we can begin a really concerted effort to eliminate this problem. We're working now with the current law, but we're handicapped. We're fighting with one hand behind our back. We can't be as successful as we want to be and as we need to be and as you want us to be. And after talking to our elected officials, they have all said they are behind this legislation and they're going to go to Nashville and they're going to attempt to get this law passed, to give us the ammunition to fight with law enforcement, along with city officials, to go a long way on ridding the sale and the distribution and the use of this dangerous drug. Like the person in the letter, I believe it is an evil. It is harming our children. They believe that because it's currently legal or may be legal that it's safe, because it's labeled that way it is, when in fact you saw the dangers of this drug. You saw how horrific this one young man behaved. And you will probably hear from a physician or one of our next speakers about the effects on the system. I know that in the last few months I have seen 3 related deaths from bath salts, autopsies. I've heard stories about the conduct of children, the effects on them, and Judge Toohey can speak to that. I've heard about the behavior that's exhibited by these people. And like the writer in the letter says, some of these people that die, we'll never get them back. They're lost. Their friends, their family, their loved ones will see them. And for others who survive, the effects may be weeks and months and years to combat the problems and the cost. And so what I'm going to ask you all to do when you all leave here is to talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your children about the harm of this drug. Talk to your community about supporting new legislation that can help me and my staff at the District Attorney's Office, that can help Judge Toohey, that can help Chief Osborne, that can help law enforcement, that can help our judicial officials combat this problem before it gets worse, before the epidemic even gets deeper, broader, and stronger. I ask you to go out and educate the community and back legislation to support laws that will help run this problem out of Kingsport, that will stop further sales of this in Sullivan County. that will rid and save our children, save our citizens. That's what I'm asking you to do tonight. And as you listen to the other people on the panel, they will give you their perspectives of what they've seen the effects of this drug. Within a year, it's gone to, 1 month, one case, it's 21. And that's just what's reported. That doesn't go into the cases that aren't reported, the deaths that maybe weren't determined to be bath salts that maybe were related. I'm telling you, we're on the cusp of a really serious problem. And we want to be proactive, and we want to be on the front end of it, not on the back end of it. After it's infested itself in our community, we want to root it out as soon as we can. So I'm glad you're here. I'm glad that you're being informed, and I'm glad that you've given me the time to speak. And I hope you will go out into the community and help us in our effort to really get the root of this problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, General Stalvis. And as he mentioned, these cases we've shown you are just the ones that have been reported. There's so many of these that have not even been reported, and they vary so much by the nature of the case. It may be a DUI where somebody is under the influence of K2 or bath salts. It may be a domestic violence incident where somebody's under the influence of that. It may be a robbery or a burglary where somebody is stealing to get money to buy K2 or bath salts. So and it may be an overdose or a suicide. We have so many different types of cases. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Tiffany Lasky. Dr. Lasky serves the citizens of Kingsport as a physician with Wellmont Health Systems, where she's the trauma surgery and critical care director. Dr. Lasky.
Well, hello everyone and welcome. I have a really short medical presentation to give to you tonight, but I want to emphasize a few key points that have already been brought up so that you can understand how different these synthetic agents are from the average other drugs that you may have heard of before. My objectives are just to describe a few medical facts about some of these designer drugs or synthetic drugs known as bath salts and spice. And we'll talk specifically about those. As you've seen tonight, there are many, and there are many new ones being developed. And discuss the medical side effects of those particular compounds, and then discuss the dangers of these compounds to the public. So, methadone is not the same thing as methamphetamine, okay? It's got different side effects and different it's a different synthetic profile. And bath salts are a synthetic stimulant that have similar effects to methamphetamines and cocaine. And it's the amphetamine and cathinone class of drugs, but they are different. This synthetic cannabis, or spice, as we've heard it referred to also, is a synthetic cannabinoid. It's similar in the chemical structure of the natural THC, but has some very different side effects. The synthetic cathinones can cause tachycardia, which is high heart rate. We've seen myocardial infarctions, heart attacks in young people of ages 20 and 30 years old. Not just from cocaine anymore, but from these synthetic drugs. That is a potential side effect. That's serious. That's debilitating for the rest of their life. Hypertension, high blood pressure can cause strokes in young people, can cause all kinds of terrible side effects. Just from one dose. Not even an overdose, just from one dose. Paranoia and delusions, you saw that video. That's no joke. These people have no idea what they are saying, what they are doing, and what their actions are being portrayed as. They have no idea. And they don't very often have recollection of that either. They'll lose their memory. And the worst part about the hallucinations, the violence, the paranoia, inducing things such as serious as death and suicide, even murders, is that some of these psychoses are permanent. After one dose, not an overdose, just one dose of some of these synthetics, the patients have been reported to be psychotic for life, okay? So a young, otherwise healthy person that thinks they're taking marijuana could be taking an agent that will destroy the rest of their life and make them psychotic for long periods of time, maybe even for life. So I think that's one of the key differences I want to emphasize about the side effects of synthetic drugs. They're extremely dangerous, they're extremely potent, and they're extremely unknown. We do not have antidotes for these drugs. Now, some of the side effects for the cannabinoids are similar to that of the bath salts. Hallucinations, paranoia, anxiety, nausea, and vomiting. You don't often see these same side effects from the traditional cannabinoids. Some people even use cannabinoids medically for antiemetics or anti-nausea. These synthetics, these potent versions, have the opposite effect. They also can cause high blood pressure, high heart rates. They can even cause patients to go into seizure activity. Seizures, brain-damaging seizures. So how do you treat this? We don't have a good treatment for this. If there's anything you can take away from what I'm going to say is this and the next slide. We don't have a good treatment for this. We've tried things like benzodiazepines. That family is the Valium family of drugs. It takes extreme amounts of sedatives to calm these people down, and sometimes even after extreme amounts of sedatives, they do not calm down. When someone on this drug comes into the emergency room, the entire hospital hears about it, not because they want to, but because they can hear them down the hall, screaming and carrying on, and they have no idea what they're doing or saying. So we don't have a good antidote, we don't have a good treatment. And all these new unknown mixtures and compounds are constantly being redeveloped and resynthesized, and that makes it impossible for the medical professionals to find a cure for this or a treatment for this or even a way to diagnose it properly because they're constantly twisting around the chemistry. These manufacturers are constantly twisting around the chemistry to the point where the physicians in the emergency departments, in the trauma bays, and in your community are having a hard time keeping up with this. And one of the things that I've learned from some of the professionals I've interacted with today is that the true experts on these medications or on these abused drugs are the ones that are actually manufacturing them and using them. Those are the experts. We in the medical community are just trying to catch up. So it's impossible at times to develop the proper diagnostic tests and antidotes to identify and treat these, even in one dose or an overdose. The big public danger, and this is the part that I really want you to take home, is that the dose, the efficacy, the safety, the elimination, the way it's expelled from the body is completely unknown. Many and nearly all of these new compounds have never been studied in an animal, let alone a human. Okay? We have no idea what the long-term or short-term effects are going to be. Especially the long-term effects are what concerns me. How are these people going to be able to recover? So I'm going to finish with a quote from the doctor that actually synthesized the first synthetic cannabinoids. And he said, I mean, this is the inventor. He said, people who use this, designer drugs, are idiots. You don't know what it's going to do to you. So if you take anything away from that, please take that message.
Thank you, Dr. Next, we're going to be hearing from Judge Mark Toohey. He's our General Sessions Judge and our Juvenile Court Judge here in Kingsport for Sullivan County General Sessions Court. Hope I didn't throw on you there.
For your all's information, if you're wondering why people are doing this, what I'm doing right now, there's a cord back here and it goes down to a hole that you can get your heel caught in. We're all trying to avoid it. So if I fall down, that's what happened. Let me tell you something. Last week, y'all may not know this.
Use the mic, please.
Can you hear me now? Am I too loud? I handle juvenile cases here in Kingsport. Judge Conkin, who's seated in the audience, and I both do general sessions and juvenile work. On one day last week, I had 3 kids under age 17 who came into juvenile court who've been using K2. That's 3 of our children. One of them told us that he bought it in one of these shops here in town, and we know which one it is, and we're going to follow up on it. The thing that kind of troubled me as I was looking at the affidavit that's sworn out when these kids are charged with doing something wrong, and it indicated that the officer responded to a school clinic. So I asked this kid, what were you doing in the school clinic? And he said, passing out. And he's supposed to be up in school and he's supposed to be getting an education. But because some of the stuff that some people around here are selling, he's in the clinic passing out. Which leads us to a question. Why does the legislature or the Board of Mayor and Aldermen need to pass a law making this general type of stuff illegal? Well, I'll tell you something. When people come to me and tell me that they're law-abiding citizens, it doesn't mean much. The reason is that our criminal laws set a floor on behavior, not a ceiling. And what it basically means is that if your behavior goes below this certain level, we're not going to tolerate it anymore. We're going to do something about you. So when you hear people say things like, well, I'm not doing anything wrong, this is legal, you think about that. What's that person really thinking? What does that mean? Money. That's what that means. And you're going to hear a lot of talk from now until this law is passed about how people should be free, how the government should stay out of their business, how consenting adults should be able to do what they want to. It's all about money in that pocket. And that's all it's about, because they don't care. Why in the world would you sell something to somebody when you know it's going to make them sick? Because you don't care. Now, something that we're going to have to do here, I tried to get a general estimate of how many seats are in here. There's roughly 200 seats in here, maybe 250. And we have an audience now full of people. Maybe we're preaching to the choir. I see a lot of people I know, but full of people who now know something about bath salts and synthetic marijuana and the effects. Now we've got to figure out how to get that message to the kids. Because passing a law is not going to stop kids from using this stuff. The police are not going to stop kids from using this stuff, and I'm not going to stop the kids from using this stuff. None of us are going to stop them. What's going to stop them is they need to know what's going on. Because I'll tell you how it is in the drug culture, especially with kids. Kids want to be part of a group. They want to be important. They want to have a social life. So you can bring 2 kids in here to watch this, and they're going to see a judge, they're going to see a police officer, they're going to see the DA, they're going to see a doctor. And then when they leave here, one of them's going to say to the other one, just calm down. Just calm down. I've used this stuff before, and look at me, I'm fine. They're just trying to scare you, and don't let them do it. Now, this stuff is not for people with psychological problems. This stuff is not for weak-minded people. So if you're one of those people who don't use it, but if you are mature, and if you are a strong person, and if you know what you're doing, then you're going to be fine just like I am, and I'll show you how to do it. Come on, buddy, let's go. Kids that are involved in the drug culture do not listen to adults as much as we think they do. They look to people who are in that culture for answers. So I thought what I might share with you tonight, including the people in the community who are selling this stuff, some thoughts from the people in the drug culture about these two things, bath salts and synthetic cannabinoids. You may be surprised to find out that law enforcement has an ally in these websites that promote the legalization of marijuana. That's how bad these two drugs are. You may be surprised to find out that the legislature has an ally in these websites on the computer that promote using LSD. The people who are crazy enough to use LSD are not crazy enough to use this stuff. And I want you to listen to some of their comments, and I'll try to be brief. If I lost my glasses, we're done. This, you'll see some of the attitude I'm talking about with these people. All right, I'm on the www.neurosoup.com place. That's a website of a young lady that thinks that by taking LSD, she found all the information in the universe. She knows that life is love, and she's out there, trust me. But she's got a place on her website where you can complain about bad drugs. Well, here's a complaint. Here's something that a guy who goes by the name of Element said about bath salts. Let me start off by advising users, experimenters, and especially youth who are desperate to get high. Do not use bath salts that are sold in head shops. Today is the next day. Last night I got a hold of this substance at my local head shop. I had heard news reports of the danger of this product and how there is an emergency ban in place to abolish the drug in Washington State. This only enticed me to obtain this product more, as often media hype about drug danger is mostly, I'm going to say BS. He wrote something else. And untrustworthy. All right, now see, you've got an attitude there with people who are in the drug culture. Well, he goes on to explain his experience with bath salts. And at the end of it, he says, I was very close to requesting hospital treatment, which would not have been a bad idea, but I waited it out. It would get a little better, a little worse, back and forth, but eventually, after about 3 or 4 hours, I was feeling thankful to be alive and sober. Now, that's a sobering experience for a guy who likes drugs. Think about that. I got on another website. There's a guy on there. He's another one of these dopers. I mean, he likes this stuff. He thinks that marijuana ought to be legal, and he has, I don't know. But he decided to become a human test subject for JWH 018. And he thought that he would be the person who would answer the questions that the doctor had over here. About, I wrote them down. Dr. Lasky, the amount to take, the efficacies, the elimination profiles, the basic pharmacological blah, blah, blah that the medical profession doesn't know. Well, this guy, along with some other people, decided they were going to be the human test subjects, okay? So he got some of this JWH 018, which is, they call it synthetic marijuana. It really has nothing to do with marijuana other than this chemical binds to the same receptor in the brains. Otherwise, it has no relation to marijuana. Anyway, he smokes it for a while, and he's putting out positive reviews, okay? You ought to try this stuff. Not bad. And then all of a sudden, it happens. He wound up in the emergency room, spent a couple of hours there until they got him stabilized. Then he spent 3 days in the psych ward, according, that's the way he describes it. At one point in time, he thought he was dead. He thought everything had come to a finite point, whatever that means. He spent months trying to overcome the depression that he was suffering from the reaction that he had to this synthetic marijuana that's such a great deal for everybody. He took he smoked this synthetic marijuana last November, and he is still having the feeling that he is observing his life more than he is participating in it. And he is dead set against this stuff. Now, this is another experienced drug user, and he has a very interesting message for any of the people who sell this stuff who were previously trying to advertise on his website. He told them to get it off, get their stuff off, or he was going to call them up, and I won't tell you what he said he's going to call them. The point being, no matter which angle you look at it from, whether it's the community in here that we know have good sense and are already interested in prohibiting the sale and use of these substances, or you can go to the hardcore drug users. They'll tell you it's dangerous and it's no good. It doesn't matter who you talk to. The only people who are going to tell you that this stuff needs to be legal, it's all about money. So I would like to challenge the educational system in Kingsport, Sullivan County, and all the localities to help put together information for students, to present it to large groups of students in assembly, and to make them aware of what's going on. I also want to encourage the parents to get out there and get knowledgeable about this stuff. Get on the web. Look at what the kids are looking at. When you talk with your kids about this, you want them to know that you know something about it too. Otherwise, they'll assume you don't know anything at all about it. Representative Shipley told me he plans to introduce the law that General Stalvis was talking about, hopefully within the next month. And guess what it's going to do? One thing I really like about it once they get it going, one of the things that the jury is going to be able to look at in determining whether or not something's used for bath salts or somebody selling it to get somebody high is the cost. The Attorney General's office can go to Walmart now. Once this law is passed, they can buy, what, a pound of bath salts for $1.99, show that to a jury, and then show them the little vial that costs $40. And ask you, why would you buy this little vial for $40 if you're going to put it in your bathtub? The idea is to simply make anything that imitates a controlled substance that's being used for that purpose illegal. And then you can change all the chemical formulas that none of us up here can, well, she can. The rest of us can't even pronounce them. But you can change all the chemical formulas you want to, and it's not going to make any difference. Because ultimately, you're going to be brought to justice. Thank you very much.
Share two samples that we've seen here locally in recent days. I had a man call me last week, and he said my son, who's about 25 years old, is hooked on bath salts. He said now he's been a hardcore user. Said he's been hooked on Valium, he's tried heroin, he's tried cocaine. When he found him and trying to help him, he hadn't been asleep for 7 days. And trying to get to feed him and get him a little bit better and bring him home for a few days, he shared with his dad that I've tried everything to stop this, but he said, of all the things that I've used, every drug that I've been addicted to, so this bath salts is the worst that I've ever seen. The description that we've shared there, whether they're agitated or ready to fight or wanting to kill themselves, he experienced all that. Of course, his dad is like a lot of parents. He's at his wit's end on how to help that child. So we need to discuss, options there as well. Another example, less than a month ago, we had a call of a dead body here in Kingsport. A lady had locked herself in a room, and she wasn't a child. I mean, she was a young lady, about 40 years old, and she had bath salts in her possession. And she had even texted her friends there what she was going to do, and she was drinking antifreeze along with it. It's sad, but that happened right here in Kingsport. That's just two examples I wanted to share. And I also wanted to give Gene Perrin, if he would, an opportunity to speak. Gene is an assistant to Barry Stalbus. Gene has drafted legislation that's going to go before the state, and he has a great passion for helping our community. Gene, if you would like to share a few words, I'd appreciate it.
Really hard to add anything to what these people have presented because they have covered it in all respects. Let me just share with you what I have seen from over 20 years of prosecuting major narcotics cases in Florida and in Sullivan County. Of working daily with the narcotics officers that go out and investigate drug crimes. And dealing with powder cocaine when it first hit, crack cocaine when it first hit, methamphetamine when it first hit, pharmaceutical pills when it first hit. It doesn't compare at all to this tidal wave that's running over the top of us. And personally, I think there's a special place in hell for people that sell this stuff. But as Judge Toohey pointed out, the money that they are making, ruining the lives of our loved ones and fellow kids, fellow community members, we got to put a stop to it. And we're going to do everything that we can to put a stop to it. Because I'm tired of talking to police officers, narcotics officers that can't control these individuals. I'm tired of talking to emergency and medical personnel. There was a case up in Bristol where this man was so agitated, and as the good doctor pointed out, they could not even sedate him, that while in the emergency room, he took the IVs out of his arm, took all his clothes off, and ran around naked in the Bristol Regional Hospital until they could tase him. Now, I'm going to tell you what, when I've had loved ones in the hospital that are dying or recovering from surgery, I don't go up there to see some naked fool run around on bath salts being chased by police officers. But that's what we're dealing with. I had lunch with the principal at one of our high schools this week, and while we were gone from her school for an hour, they caught another one of the students in possession of K2. I have talked to correctional officers that have talked over our work with a fellow that's a captain at the Bristol, Virginia Police Department that, as the doctor pointed out, had a fellow like a caged animal in one of their cells that they tried to sedate and couldn't calm him down. And for over 48 hours, he walked around his cell, never sleeping for the first bit. And so I applaud General Stalbus and everything that he is doing. I applaud Chief Osborne, the mayor, Judge Toohey, the doctor. But you know what? We shouldn't have an empty seat in this auditorium. We shouldn't have an empty parking place out there in that parking lot. We should have so many people lined up that said, not in our community, okay? Not our children, not your children, not my brother, not your daughter. We're going to put a stop to it. And I can assure you, as I am standing here, that we will do everything we can to ultimately bring these people to justice, to shut down these places, and to run them out. It's going to be a hard fight because they got the money lined up. They got the lawyers lined up. But you know what? That's blood money. And it doesn't compare to anything that this community with these people can bring to the other side of the table and say, fine, the war's on. Because we're not going to lay down. We will fight you at every step of the way till we have driven you out of Sullivan County and out of the state of Tennessee. Okay? So until that's done, we're going to ask each and every one of you, and one of the things, General Staubus, when you leave here tonight, please talk to the people you know, the people you go to church with, you grandparents that have children that or maybe can't be here, that have school-age grandchildren, talk to them. And know that we're only a phone call away. He's only a phone call away. Judge Toohey's only a phone call away. General Staubus is only a phone call away. You call us. And you tell us how we can help you, because we're going to be calling upon you to help us take our communities back. All right? Thank you.
Attorney Gene Perrin was our surprise guest speaker, and he's the only one who got an amen, so I'm proud of him. We're going to transition into our discussion session, and it appears we're right on time. So the guidelines for this discussion session, if anybody would like to make a comment or ask a question of our panel of experts up here, I want you to come up here to the podium and use the microphone. Just state your name and make your comment or ask your question. We ask that you keep your questions and the answers, of course, and comments brief and on topic so as to allow as many people as possible to participate tonight. And we also want to mention that the purpose of this forum is to educate people on the dangers of synthetic drugs and the laws pertaining to them, not to promote their sale or use. So with that being said, anyone attempting to utilize this forum to advance their own personal agenda will obviously have to be asked to leave. So we're here for a purpose tonight. Let's stay with that purpose. If anybody does need to leave in the meantime, I do want to encourage everybody to go by our static display in the back and see some of these items. There's also some pamphlets that you can take, but we would like for everybody to stay as long as possible and hear these questions and answers, because I think we can all learn from them. Floor is open.
Why don't we publish the list of the stores that are marketing this stuff in the newspaper with information about the effects? I didn't know anything about these drugs until a few weeks ago, and I read about them online. But they're in our communities. They're poisonous. Is there a problem with getting the newspaper to just publicize the stores, the distributors, the owners of the stores, and stigmatize them publicly?
what he pays for the drugs. When we talk about the money that this man makes, this man's making $250,000 per month off one type of this. So when they're talking about money, this guy's becoming a multi-millionaire off these people. And it's just, it's crazy.
My name is Joe Connolly, and I reside at 1257 Linville Street, Kingsport. I have operated the land surveying business in Kingsport for nearly 40 years. Last spring, I had one of these shops open its doors next to my office. During the brief period that I remained there, I witnessed young adults, school children, adults parking their cars and leaving unattended infants in the car while the parents went into this shop and purchased their goods. I've been deeply touched by this situation, and I would like to applaud the City of Kingsport, especially our mayor, for taking the initiative to do something about this problem. And I would like to volunteer my services in any way that I can as a concerned citizen. I do have one objection. I sincerely object to the word synthetic being used in this situation. Synthetic seems to lend itself to a filtered down product, a product that has some lesser qualities. We're dealing with the real thing here. And the word synthetic just to me is appalling in this situation. Thank you.
Raised an excellent point, and on the use of the word synthetic, I guess the primary reason that word's used is because they are actually designed to mimic drugs that are already in existence, but the other word that's used for that is designer drugs, which is a word that Dr. Lasky used.
Hi, my name is Marty Walker. My son was caught with the synthetic marijuana in his truck. It was on school property. And I just want to know how he can pass the drug test and be completely negative, and how drug dogs can sniff it out.
I can tell you some of the information that I have from our TBI crime lab is that some of these drugs are so new and the chemical makeup varies so much and so interchangeable. What I've found from speaking to our Tennessee Bureau of Lab, our forensic lab experts, is that these drugs are so new, so novel, and they're so subject to change that they develop the drugs before we develop the screens for it. And that's one of the other things about these drugs, that talking to medical personnel, there is no developed screen to determine the level of the amount of these designer or synthetic drugs. The way we detect it is more by their behavior and the histories they give us and the evidence of where they get the drugs or the substance from. So sometimes some of these substances simply don't have a drug screen, which makes them more difficult to detect, which means as parents, I guess it's even more, you have to be more vigilant, and it's more difficult to detect what's going on. It's not simply give them a drug screen, determine what's in their system, because the people that produce these drugs are out in front of the screens.
How are the dogs able to detect it?
Now that I can't tell you.
I'll try to address that for you. One way that I'm not going to tell you that particular case because I don't know what the dog was smelling, but all things related to drugs are often interact. For example, dogs will often hit on cash because cash has been around drugs. And if these drugs, if these K2 and bath salts are being sold and handled by people who are also selling and handling marijuana and cocaine and other drugs, then that scent can get on that. So that's oftentimes dogs will hit on like money, even though there may not be any drugs there, or they may hit on paraphernalia that's been used for the drug. For example, a pipe might be used to smoke marijuana and K2. So.
I can.
Bath salts are new to me and my coworkers. And so can you clarify from what I've been hearing that
Everybody check your back. Somebody's leaning against the light.
from what I'm hearing here, bath salts are sold in specialty stores. Is that true, or can you clarify exactly? Can you go to Walmart, Target, and buy bath salts?
Those things are called bath salts, but they're legitimately used for that purpose. These things are given the labels. The folks that manufacture these things, what we're finding is that many of the people that produce these things we call bath salts actually are made in China. They're made in foreign countries. They have all kinds of impurities. They have all kinds of variations of dangerous drugs. So as Judge Toohey said, a legitimate bath salt, you can go get at Walmart. You get it for a couple bucks. and you can get a whole bunch. You go to these specialty shops, and that's where they're being sold here in the community, or a small amount for a large amount of money. They're just given that label so they can hide behind this pretense that they're safe, that they're okay, that they're being used for other reasons other than drugs. And as Judge Toohey has pointed out, that's the only purpose. And the only reason they're involved in that enterprise is because it's very lucrative financially for them.
Is the law enforcement community or the judicial people in the community allowed to prosecute these people in any way, or are they only being convicted for the crimes that they do while on this? And also, are the people selling this able to do this legally still?
You want to do that?
I can't prosecute anybody. I can just hear the case. But in terms of the substances that have already been made illegal, you can be prosecuted for selling or possessing those substances. The new law that we're talking about, that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen's going to be talking about tomorrow night, and also that Representative Shipley and others down in Nashville are talking about in the legislature, is a law that will expand the definition of these mimicking substances in a way that it won't matter whether it's JWH 018 or JWH 210. It doesn't matter whether they alter them or not after something's made illegal. It's going to remain illegal anyway, because it's going to cover a class of imitation-controlled substances regardless of their chemical makeup. Did I answer your question?
Well, currently, is there no way to arrest these people for simply having these things?
What we're finding out when we obtain these drugs, we don't know when we seize them or we get them through law enforcement investigations whether they're legal or not. Because the law defines them, as Judge Toohey says, there is a specific definition of what's illegal. Well, these people are smart enough, all they have to do is change one compound, and so in a small way, change the chemical makeup. And they'll say, okay, it's not illegal. Okay, so if we get those drugs, we have to submit it to the lab. Then we have to wait on a lab report. And we've been told, again by forensic laboratory folks, that these are very complicated, complex drugs. Then they have to be submitted and they have to test it. Then they have to tell us, okay, is the drug that you have a drug that's illegal or not? And they may come back and say, yes, it is illegal under the current law. Or they may say it's close, but it's not. And if it's close, it's not good enough. It has to, and that's why we're changing the law, not to define the crime by the chemical makeup, but more broadly. So we're trying, and we are doing what we can, but the current law handicaps us, and that's why we think it's so important, and that's why we're so grateful to have the legislature and Representative Shipley on board, because they recognize the problem. We're going to change the law, as they've done in other states, so we're not tied by the chemical makeup. We have a broader law that we can go after these people. We can do it more effectively, and we can punish them and put them off the streets. But right now, with the way the law is written, we don't know what we have until we send it to the lab.
Before anybody gets mad at Dr. J.W. Huffman, John W. Huffman, he was a research chemist at Clemson University. And the reason he and his colleagues synthesized or invented these particular compounds, it was for medical research. And some of these JWH compounds, one in particular, I think it's JWH 173 or 143, has shown some promise in studies used on rats that it can shrink tumors, and it might possibly be used with chemotherapy in reducing cancer and the effects of cancer. So when they made these compounds, it was for a perfectly legitimate purpose. They published their scientific papers, and then some bad people got a hold of them, and since then this industry has arisen.
Well, go ahead and ask the question.
How do we plan to address this problem to the students of the Sullivan County schools?
Well, my hope is that all school systems in the county will, and I can tell you that, well, my hope is that all school systems in the county, city, Bristol, Kingsport, Sullivan County, will want people like Gene Perrin, like Judge Toohey, Dr. Lasky, law enforcement people to come in and give firsthand information about what they've seen and what they know. I hope that we could come in and show videos just like that to demonstrate to students who, as Judge Toohey said, peer pressure is so, I guess, is so important to young people. And we can say, well, this drug's dangerous, but when they see a video like you've seen and they see that behavior and they hear stories, true stories of what happened, I hope that will bring some awareness. So I hope that this forum will be kind of the foundation, the springboard for the school systems to want to get involved with Judge Toohey, with the district attorney's office, and law enforcement about being able to go through the schools and put some comprehensive training about drugs, but particularly these kind of drugs. And that's something else you in the community can do. You folks right here, you can go to your schools and you can talk to your superintendents, you can talk to your principals, you can talk to your teachers and say, look, I went to that forum, it's a terrible problem, and I think it's a priority in the schools that you have a program to reach out to the kids. That's what I think should be done.
Don't mean to butt in, but we would be delighted to have your input and some of the students' input about how to educate students, because people learn, in my view, they learn a lot from people their own age. So maybe you can help us design a program that young folks want to listen to.
Continuing on that, the Kingsport Police Department and the Bristol Police Department and the Sullivan County Sheriff's Office all have active community relations programs, and they're willing and able to go out and do programs for any public event, whether it's in a school or for a civic club or a church or anything else. So we're there. Sometimes we go seeking those out, and in this case we're going to be doing that. But we accept invitations as well. So anytime you want a program, if we have the data to do the program, we'll do it. If not, then we'll do some research and we'll learn it, and then we'll come do it. So.
Compounds discussed tonight will be revealed in longitudinal hair follicle testing?
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. I've been trying to find out. I'm interested in it because I've seen incidences where I believe these substances may be present. I'm very interested in, having specific testing for parents that are going to have children returned back to their custody when there has been drug activity specifically observed in the record. And I've been on the internet and I just don't know those answers either. I thought maybe
My guess would be the synthetic cannabinoids, but I don't know for sure. Probably the synthetic, the designer cannabinoids.
Okay, thanks very much.
My name is Kevin Moore. I'm a student at DV, and I was wondering how are the effects of synthetic marijuana compared to that of what you call traditional marijuana?
Some of the effects are exactly the opposite. The designer drugs were really designed to circumvent the law. They weren't designed for any medical purpose like many of the traditionally used substances and abused substances. So, for example, medical marijuana can be used, like I talked about, as an antiemetic or something to keep you from vomiting, whereas on the flip side, the designed or the designer cannabinoids that some refer to as synthetics because they're a different chemical version actually cause the opposite. They cause people to have nausea and vomiting. So that's one example. But the worst example I can give you is the fact that people often will abuse drugs like methamphetamines for their stimulating effects and the euphoric effects. However, when methadone, for example, when the stimulating effect of that increases the dopamine and the serotonin in the brain to such high levels that the person becomes psychotic, that is oftentimes irreversible. And there aren't a lot of medically used substances that will induce. It's an extremely rare side effect to have a drug that's made for medical purposes to induce a psychosis that's long-lasting or permanent. And I think that's the message I would like the young people, especially in the audience, to understand, is that one dose, one mistake, one time, and it's like an egg frying in a pan. Okay, your brain will have electrolyte derangements, low sodium, seizures, anoxic damage, lack of oxygen, and ultimately the brain can swell to the point that the person can die or become permanently psychotic. And we've seen this. And one of the stories that stuck with me in the medical literature was of a young girl, age 18, in Stockholm, Sweden, who came into the emergency room with blue lips, blue hands. She immediately went into seizures, got intubated, and less than a day and a half after she came into the emergency room, she died in the intensive care unit on full life support. This was a young, previously healthy person with their whole life ahead of them. And that's the kind of message people need to hear. You might be able to do it once and get away with it. You might be able to do it twice and get away with it. Your friend might be able to do it and get away with it. But that is what put this on the map, is stories like this 18-year-old in 2008 where, they went to sleep and they never woke up. So I think people need to understand that the psychosis, the seizures, the electrolyte derangements, and the long-term effects of these drugs are completely unknown. We don't know how it is eliminated from the body. We don't know how to sedate the people that get this problem. We don't know how to treat the side effects. We can do some of the therapies that we've learned from these other drugs. We can try those, but we're really just shooting in the dark.
I'm not aware of any at this time. Like, we just said that it's so relatively new. There will be studies done in relation to that, but we don't have any findings at this time.
And then, like the last 2 years, the number of police officer deaths has gone through the roof.
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Even though, and I didn't mean to interrupt again, but something that occurred to me is, police officers don't complain. They do their job, but they have to go home to their families who are looking for them to come home, just like the rest of us. And some of the behavior of these people who become psychotic are extremely dangerous for police officers and anyone who's around them, including the medical profession.
And speaking on the tracking, we have a block on all our police reports that actually just says drug-related, yes or no. And, so we can track whether a call is drug-related or not. But as far as whether it's designer drug or synthetic drug-related, we don't have a way to track that yet because it's brand new. It's brand new to us. A year ago, this didn't even exist. Now it does. So the way I pulled these cases that I showed you in the introduction there was just by simply doing a query search for the words in the narrative. And so we're going to begin trying to track these things a little bit better. But again, it's so new, we don't have any history to see how it's affected other things.
Hello, my name's Mail Mark. I'm a CASA volunteer. And like I said, I go along with the first speaker about putting in the newspaper and let us know these businesses that are doing this. But also after that, I'd like to put up a boycott of these businesses and hurt them where that dollar comes in. So if we could do that and set up some kind of boycott, that hurts them businesses, and let us know who they are so we can boycott these businesses. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tessa Rhodes. I just had a question.
like on the internet, do they order that? Is that like a chemical that's in the bath salt? What is that?
Are you talking about how did the, I guess,
Like what they make illegal in the bath salt?
well, most of these things, as I say, they're produced, a lot of these things we're finding are produced in China. And when they come packaged, prepackaged with these ingredients. And the people that get them, they don't know exactly what's in it. They know that what they're selling is not being used to bathe with. And they know that people are not using this potpourri to make their house smell good. And they don't know exactly what's in there. And often we never find out until it's too late. So I don't, when they buy this stuff, the vendors, when these businesses buy it, it's already packaged with those drugs already in it.
So it's not like separate and then
No.
like people put it together?
The information I have is that they're brought and they're packaged, and they have all this nice, pretty packaging to make it even more alluring to young people.
And then I read in the newspaper a couple of weeks ago how when they, I don't know if it's passed or it's a misdemeanor if you get caught with these things for selling. And thought that it said there's a $50 fine also.
Mm-hmm.
Is that just if this law is going to be passed, or is that now?
Currently, it's a Class A misdemeanor, which means it can carry up to 11 months and 29 days in jail. What we intend to do, if this legislation that we're talking about gets passed, it will make it a felony, which means it will carry more than that, and the fines will be substantially higher. Okay?
Thank you.
I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions, but before everybody leaves, I want to give the mayor an opportunity there to get up and share his concerns as well.
I do want to just clarify one thing and make sure this didn't go over your head, because I never understood. I was somewhat concerned that maybe our police was not doing all they could. Maybe we're just making excuses that we couldn't prosecute. But in discussing this with every mayor in the state of Tennessee, one of the things that I found out was when they say they change the ingredients. Let me give you kind of what that means. If we outlawed equal, the stuff you use to sweeten your tea with, then that's what was in this synthetic marijuana and bath salts. Then what the dealers are doing, they're taking the not putting equal in it, they're putting sweet and low in it. Well, equal is illegal, but sweet and low isn't. So if you go over to Food City to buy a cake and it's made with equal or sweet and low, I doubt if you'd know the difference. So that's what they're doing. And so therefore, until it's analyzed and you know what's in that cake, it's not necessary. You don't know that it's illegal. So that is how complicated this is. That's the extent they'll go to get around and sell to young people. One thing I do want to say about the law, what we're doing in the city is certainly not going to deter to the extent that we want it to. A $50 fine is not going to really financially put anyone under that's making as much as $10,000 per day. But what we want to do is make this illegal in the city. But mostly by making it illegal in the city, we're bringing attention to it. We're bringing attention to it so that the state of Tennessee will pass laws similar to or better than the state of Virginia has. And believe it or not, when this law, when the representatives have this bill and it goes in front of the House and the Senate, there's what's called a fiscal review committee. Now, this fiscal review committee will say this, to make this a felony is going to cost a lot of money. And believe it or not, a lot of good bills are not passed because of the financial impact. My opinion is the financial impact is we don't pass a law making this a felony, and we're paying from now on for our young people. And that is a very serious problem. So let your legislators know that you're not going to back down. The financial impact of not doing something is a lot more in the long run than doing something. Give them your support. I cannot begin to tell you how supportive our local legislators have been toward getting this law passed. And the Attorney General has met with us anytime we want to, his staff, Judge Tui and the other judges. So you've got people that know what they're doing, that are willing to do whatever it takes, and they're begging for laws to be passed so they can put these hellholes out of business. We need your support, and thanks.
I'm curious about one thing. Can people that are using these synthetic drugs, can they function on a daily basis and us not know it? I mean, say, I suspect maybe my friend I'm working with is on drugs. Okay, but are they going to be as far out as that one man that we saw on there, the young man, or can they maybe function and we not really know it? Do you know what? I don't know if I'm saying it right. I just want to know, because if I'm with someone that I suspect is on something, and you're saying that you can't be drug tested for these things, then, I mean, is that possible? That someone can function, maybe take half a dose, say, and it not make them as crazy acting?
Short answer is yes. People can function on these for an undetermined amount of time before they have a reaction. But like you've heard on the hardcore drug testimonials that were shared with you from the web, these are the folks that know the most about what the long-term effects of these drugs are. And I definitely would say that, you know, that it's possible for people to function for a certain period of time. Long-term, I don't think they could. And the reason for that is you're talking about compounds that were not engineered for medical purposes. They have toxic impurities, and some of them are 4 times more powerful than the parent drug that was originally created. So there's going to be a buildup at some point, which will be different for each person depending on their metabolism.
Well, it sounds to me like, too, on the other hand, that I can bring any kind of anything, put it in a package and say, this is not dangerous, this is not illegal, and that makes it legal? Can a police officer answer me on that? Because, I mean, to me, all these things that are coming in, they're saying, don't inhale it, don't do this, don't do that with it, but they're doing that with it. Does that mean that you can package meth and put on it, put a pretty design on it, and then say this is okay to take?
I think the difference in something like what you mentioned by saying meth or natural marijuana or cocaine, those actually do have illegal ingredients in those. So, you know, there's tests for those substances.
The answer to that question is that there are common household products out there. I think the one that always comes to everybody's mind is rat poisoning. And it says on there, not for human consumption, and it has illegal ingredients in it. The difference is that it's really just a matter of common sense. When you get involved in the court system and the legal system, things become very complex because of the different defenses people will put up. But just from a common sense standpoint, we know that people are using rat poisoning to poison rats. Now, if we find out a lot of people were ingesting rat poisoning and that it was selling for $200 a can, and it was becoming a problem, I think the legislature would address that as well. It just has to. You have to look at people's intent. It's hard to codify that in a law, But the common sense factor kicks in, and you realize, yeah, this what's going on here is not good.
Frazier. I had to go in front of Judge Tui a couple of weeks ago. Excuse me. My girlfriend has got a 17-year-old son. I live out in the country. He was living in the city. I wake up one morning and his mother had stole $500 from me. Me and her got in an argument. Her son come out, knocked me across a recliner, got me in a chokehold. She was kicking me. If the guy that lived in the basement hadn't seen it all, I'd went to jail. And he come and testified in court, and Judge Tui threw it out. I thank you. This happened about 2 weeks ago. His mother had been buying synthetic marijuana. I knew that she was going to buy him some. Him and her left the house. It was about 20 minutes till 11 when I left the house. I was trying to get over to the easy mark. To stop it. I was speeding. I run a traffic light. And the Sullivan County deputy helped me there and told me, said, no, you can't go tell that man he can't sell him out. I said, is that kid's life more important, or is that ticket more important? I said, follow me over, let me stop it, and then write me the ticket. And she would. I've got a rental house. The gentleman that rents it, his name's Sonny Lawson. He works for the security at Houston Valley. And he said he's getting a lot of overtime. I said, how come? He said this synthetic marijuana. He's having to stay there with these kids. There's two people on the road that I live died this weekend from this. Thank you.
I've just got a comment to make. My name's Mike Livingston. I'm president of the Kingsport Area Safety Council. And a lot of people in this room probably don't know it, but mid-March of 2012, the city of Kingsport, Bristol, and Sullivan County is going to be designated the 16th or 17th state community of America by the National Safety Council. A very privileged award to get that. And I think one of the reasons that we get an award like that is because we have a strong business industry and a strong community that takes things that are problems and deals with them. And I applaud the board of mayor and aldermen for your efforts in this problem we got with synthetic drugs. And I think just from the turnout we got here tonight, your community's behind you to do what we can. We thank you so much for your efforts. Our kids are our future. That's right. And I think that's the thing that we have to keep in mind more than anything else. They're our future workers. We need to keep them in good health, give them good education. Amen.
A common symptom of the synthetic marijuana and the bath salts was paranoia. That's right, right? Okay. If you're paranoid and you're going to buy some dope and you pull up to the place that sells the dope and you see a police car sitting close by, I doubt you're going to go buy the dope. So I understand we can't have one parked there all the time because they may get called away, right? But instead of anywhere else during their idle time, until we can get the law passed, why don't we have the police officers park themselves outside of these places that sell the dope?
And I'll address that. That actually is already being done to some extent. You know, while we can't necessarily stop people from going in and buying the product, we can enforce other laws. You know, if somebody comes up and parks illegally in front of the business, they may just get a visit from us in that aspect. If they do an illegal U-turn after going into the business, they may get a visit from us. So again, we can't necessarily enforce that law yet because those laws aren't on the books yet. But we can enforce other things as well.
First, I'd like to apologize for my appearance. I didn't come all dressed up. I'll explain why. I spent the day with my son today, and we're dealing with an addiction of these synthetic drugs. And when you're a parent and you're dealing with your only child like this, getting dressed up with makeup and your nice clothes is kind of at the bottom of the totem pole. We started out Christmas shopping this morning, and started out as a really good morning with his girlfriend and our 4-month-old grandson. As the day progressed, he started becoming more and more agitated, and he started, "Mom, you've got to take me, let me get some K2." And I was like, "I can't do that. It's your mother's son. I just can't do that." And as each passing minute, literally it was by the minute, that I saw him go from my loving, intelligent, good-looking son to begging me, his mother, to buy him a drug that I know is going to continue hurting him. He literally started gagging. I thought he was going to be sick to his stomach. I mean, he literally was laying with his hands in his lap, begging me to please stop and buy him this drug so he could smoke it, so he could feel normal again. I wanted to share that with you. I know that a gentleman wanted to know if a police officer setting outside this shop would deter. It will not deter someone when they're like that. There was nothing I could say to my son today that was going to make him stop. And that was with him sitting beside our grandson, feeding him a bottle. This child, he loves him more than anything in the world. But the addiction is so strong that is almost stronger than the love he has for our precious little grandchild. We have to stay firm behind our leaders to support this, to ban these things. I don't know if it's going to help if it's in Kingsport, when outside of Sullivan County, they can do the same thing. We need to get behind our legislators and our lawmakers to pass this nationwide so that we can protect our children. This is my only son. I don't have another one. This is my only son that I'm dealing with. And he can't control it. It's absolutely something he cannot control. But I just wanted to share that with you, that it is out there, and we're your everyday normal family. Middle income, works, just 2 cars in a normal neighborhood, in a subdivision, T-ball, Awanas at church, Bible school. We did all the right things. It has nothing to do with that. It is so strong, they cannot stop without intervention. And he says he doesn't want to stop. That's the only way he can feel normal. So this addiction has got him feeling it's so consuming to him, that's his normal way of life now.
Good evening. My name is Brett Sally. I own a chiropractic center, and one of the locations that the shops that are selling these drugs is next to my office, and I have a daily reminder when I come to work of what's going on over there and around in the community. The location is right at the corner of a crosswalk of one of our schools, Jefferson Elementary. It's 3/10 of a mile from Robinson and 4/10 of a mile from Dobbins-Bennett. I pick up empty packages of the substances, the synthetic drugs that are sold around there, and I've even seen people using them around the property. And on occasion, I've had to approach some of them because they have blocked access to my office. And when I've tried to communicate with them, they were just very incoherent. And, the people that are marketing and selling this, they're very brazen about it. In fact, I saw some people that are associated with it here. They left earlier. They could still be here, some of them. But I think the idea of a stronger police presence around there is good. Hopefully, and maybe you can answer this question, with the efforts, and I applaud the mayor and the board of mayor and aldermen and the efforts the city leaders are making to address the problem. I think we have a stand-up group of leaders in the city, and I'm very, very pleased to have them in that position. But as this city ordinance is being passed, will that eliminate the open sale in the light of day of these products in shops?
I think the ordinance is a step in trying to stem the tide. No, I don't think this ordinance, because it's civil, it's a fine, it's a statement that the city leaders want to make that we don't approve of this and we're battling it. But in my opinion, the greater solution is to have this law passed. And that won't, as you know, passing a law won't stop all legal activity, but it'll give us the tools to punish the people that find this financially rewarding. I mean, the other things are like what Judge Toohey talks about. We have to educate our children. We have to get out the community and make them aware of how this is. You know, people have talked about letting other people know who these people are in the community, who's selling these things, who's benefiting by this dangerous activity. But the ordinance is a statement that the city's doing everything in its power. It's limited. But that's why ultimately we need a stronger law that allows me, my staff, the prosecutors, to go in front of the judges, Judge Toohey, Judge Conkin, the other judges in our courts, and go and prosecute these people and hold them criminally responsible. The ordinance can't do that. It can only set a fine. It's only a civil matter. But it's a gesture. It's a statement, again, about how strongly the city feels and the citizens of the city feel about it. And it's just one step along the way.
The people I encountered were under the influence and impaired. It was appalling. Some of them had kids in the back seat and they were operating the vehicle. And they're in and out of there so quickly that police often don't have time to respond in time. So I think it's an excellent idea to have a car parked outside to as much extent as possible. And I would hope that if the substances are banned, that they would not be allowed to stock them on shelves and sell them. Thank
you. My name is Thomas Edwards. I'm a student at DB, and I just had a question. Is it illegal to drive under the influence of the synthetic drugs?
Yes. Yes, it is.
You know the substances you buy and use them?
Well, do you want to?
Driving under the influence statute says it's illegal to be under the influence of any intoxicant. So it could be a prescription medication that a doctor gives you, and it's still illegal to drive under the influence of it. So it's going to cover anything that alters your mood or your behavior, and it would cover the synthetic drug as well. Really good points have been made as far as the proximity of these stores that sell this to our schools. The one she's referring to is 50 yards from Kennedy Elementary School. The one Dr. Sally was referring to, again, is right in the middle of a triangle between Jefferson Elementary, Robinson Middle School, and Dobbins Bennett High School. They're right next to our schools. The floor is still open for about 2 or 3 more minutes if anybody has any other questions or comments.
I have a part statement, part question. Something that I don't know the answer to exactly, but I'd like for General Stalvis to, if you don't want to answer tonight, ponder it. A lot of times, some of this information that the high school and junior high, well, middle school students have, and even elementary, I guess to some extent, is the children are telling their school counselors about it. What should a school counselor be allowed to do with that information, and what should their obligation be in that situation? You know, you hear all the stuff about, you know, the laws that provide privacy for this and that, but it would seem that if it hasn't already been addressed, the legislature ought to, if not require, they should at least allow school counselors to provide the police with any information they receive from a child like that regarding the use of any illegal substance.
I agree with that.
My name is Juanita Mitchell, and I'm a teacher at Dobbins Bennett High School. I know that legally, any case of abuse or neglect, I have to report directly to law enforcement.
That's a great point. It's true. I appreciate that from the teachers, because that's one of the, I'll say this, we've gone around the county, and I did a presentation with the principals at Sullivan County Thursday, and it's one of the points I made, that the law requires, if you know about child abuse or neglect, that there is no privilege, and counselors are required to report that to law enforcement. And my opinion is, if it's important enough to pass on information of that kind of abuse, then I think what we've seen here in the damage to children is just as important, and it should be reported as well. And I appreciate you bringing that point up, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank everybody for being here this evening. Y'all had some great comments, some great points that we can take back. I saw Chief Osborne and some of the other members of our panel taking notes of some of the concerns that our citizens had. I just wanted to close by saying that only by working together can we overcome this epidemic of synthetic drugs. I want to encourage everybody to stop by the display table on the way out. There's some handouts there, as well as some display items.
Nice to meet you.
And also, our contact information is here on the screen.